people a second to join. This light is very, very bright. We'll bring that like very much down. Much better. I didn't feel like putting my contacts in. So I didn't. I don't really think y'all care about that much. No one ever says anything. I think that's more of a me thing. I just ate dinner. We had shrimp and grits. It was good. Tonight's stream is really good. It's very history vibes. Lots of good memes. Pretty depressing event, but honestly, it doesn't end as bad as you think it will. Like, things have been worse before. Next week, I'm so excited for Nathan Fielder. I'm obsessed with Nathan Fielder. I am so deeply, deeply, deeply obsessed with Nathan Fielder. I think, like, his mind, to me, is, like, elite. Like, he has a level of intelligence that I think is so, so rare. And when people are like, oh, I don't think he's funny at all, I'm like, you just don't get it. And that's fine, because that's why he's so funny to me, is because, like, most people aren't getting it. And, like, that's how I feel in the day-to-day life, is I just see people and I'm like, we are very different from each other. And I think he captures that so well. And so if you know him, you'll love it, obviously. And if you don't know him, I think that you guys are going to think he's funny. Like, I think if you think I'm funny, you won't hate him. I don't know if you'll love him as much as I do, but you definitely won't hate him if you think I'm funny. U.S. military flops seated. Noodles gal, you completed the pipeline. Welcome. I don't know if I'm getting sick. I've been back at school for a little bit, so maybe I am. I just feel tired. We also did like a double recording today. So normally I don't record the podcast if I'm streaming, but yesterday we had a guest on. I'm really excited for this episode. The guest is awesome. Yesterday we had a guest on and they had technology issues, so we like couldn't finish, and they're about to go out of town. So like it just kind of had to happen today. And so I just feel like my schedule is all wonky. You know what I mean? How are the youths this year? My bestie teaches 6th grade English and they scare me. I don't know. To me, they're, like, not that different. But also, I've been at the same school for a while, so, like, I know a lot of the kids. So, they're, they're addicted to their phones. They're using AI. A lot of them have trauma. They're hilarious. A lot of them are super smart. A lot of them are really disorganized. Like, they're kids. That's, like, so far, we're only a couple weeks in. So far, I'm not picking up on anything that's, like, crazy, radically different than a different semester or a different year. But I also think because a lot of the classes at my school are on a semester schedule. Ow, that hurt. I need to get my nails off. Because a lot of the classes at my school are on a semester schedule. I think, like, to us, the beginning of the year kind of isn't as intense because we go through it twice, if that makes sense. The new phone ban in Texas is actually going really good for incoming 9th graders. Ours, I made a video about it the other day. I think it could be going better, but it's going much better than last year, and that's really all I can ask. So I had a pretty big childhood trauma healed today, so I feel like I'm winning. Nice. It's fixed. How'd you fix it? Where do I buy that? Who's your therapist? Happy to be here. I'm happy to be here as well. Let me turn on the multi-stream chat so I can see the YouTubers. Oh, I forgot to pull up the game. I did make the game, though. I made the game today. Whoa, what's going on here? I literally just ate dinner, but I'm still hungry. I didn't eat that much today. That's one thing. I'm like, really? Oh, sorry, my computer just did something weird. I don't want to say like I'm struggling to eat because that feels a little more dramatic than it is. Just at like the beginning of the school year, I'm like, I just like don't. Like I just forget to sit down and do that. Like when I remember to do it, I do it. But like today I kind of forgot to eat my breakfast just because I got distracted and I'm like still trying to get back in the routine. You know what I mean? And I have coming in like 2 weeks some announcement about changes this upcoming school year. I'm at my same school, but what I'm doing is a little bit different. So some of it's the same, but some of it's a little bit different. So I'm excited to tell you guys about that. But like always, I like to give myself a couple weeks to like settle in and get my groove in before I talk to people about it, just because then I feel like I have more to say that's a little more eloquent. But anyway, I'm forgetting to eat so often. One thing I've really been into recently is toast. I got some bread at Costco, and I had not bought bread at the Costco bakery before, and it wasn't even sliced. Like, I bought a loaf, and it's really good. It's garlic parmesan. If you don't like garlic, don't buy it, because there's literally like cloves of garlic in it. Like, you'll be eating it and you get a bite of a clove of garlic, and like, I live for that shit. But that with some avocado on it, I should be bringing that for breakfast. I've just been eating that as like a snack, and I've been very into it. Or just that bread with butter. Like, I love good butter. Get me a high quality butter. Also got that at Costco. I've been very into Costco recently. I just joined. And it's far from me, but I've decided it's worth it. And I got the executive membership because, to me, like, I'm not here to play around. It wasn't that much more. And then you get to go there earlier, so it's not crowded. And then I found one. So there's, Jesus Christ, maybe I am getting sick. The reason I hadn't joined, the Costco closest to me is always so crowded. But they opened up a new Costco, or it looks new, maybe it's not, and I just didn't know about it. There's another Costco that I did not know about, so it's new to me. That's a little bit further, but because it's not crowded, it's actually faster. So that sold me, because I don't mind sitting in my car and driving somewhere, but I do mind being inside of a crowded store. So we've been here for 6.5 minutes. We've talked about nothing that's relevant for our agenda tonight. We're here to talk about the bonus expeditionary force, or the bonus army. This is going to be very history vibes. Let's go ahead and get into it. I don't think tonight will be particularly long. It's like a pretty average slideshow that I've made. Maybe it is in quality. I don't know. It's a good one. I like it. But I just mean it's not super long like some of mine are. Costco has a 4-ingredient take and bake sourdough bread that comes in a 3-pack and stays good for a while because it's Costco magic, and also a little packet of something that keeps them fresh or something. My sister was telling me that she buys the baguettes from Costco, the frozen ones, and uses them for sandwiches, and that sounded very good. Yeah. So I wanted to give a reminder. I've been forgetting to remind you all about this. You're already here. If you would like to make $50, you have an opportunity to make $50. Isn't that so exciting for us? If you like my stream, email me a clip from the stream. I'm going to pick the best 3, and those people are going to get $50 each. You can do it live tonight. You can go back and do old ones. You can get it from YouTube, whatever you want. And even though this kind of makes me feel like I'm scamming you, I'll tell you why. I want clips of the stream to promote it more, because I love this space. I think it's really fun, and I think a lot of people don't know it exists. But I've tried hiring people to get the clips, and it just doesn't land because they don't watch it. So they just get things that I'm like, out of all these hilarious moments, like, that's what you picked. So I was like, I just need someone who gets the vibes. Could I do it myself? Yes. However, I really don't like watching my stream. It doesn't really bother me the way most people like, oh, I hate hearing my voice. I got over that a long time ago. You have to, if you're going to like do this. Because I researched it and then went through it, I just like kind of don't want to hear about that topic anymore. And then also I listen back to it and I like hate hearing myself say like and or I'll be like, oh, I forgot to say this, or like, I don't know, for some reason with the stream, I think because it's so important to me, I like beat myself up for some reason. Should probably discuss that in therapy. But anyway, for that reason, I just like can't sit through the 2 hours of it to clip it. I just can't do it. I've attempted, not really, but after like 5 minutes, I'm like, yeah, I can't do this. Because like I said, I made the whole thing and then I went through it with you all and we all talked about it. So to me, it's like in the past. But I know a lot of you all like to use the streams for like body doubling, and you've watched the same ones multiple times. You have favorites. So I was like, why would I not ask you all? Like, you all would obviously do the best job, you know? So that's how it's a win-win, because I like to explain monetary business things, and it's like, we're both benefiting. I think that's like a good way. Like, both parties should be benefiting. So that's what I'm trying to explain and doing a poor job. Mr. Doctor, I started my PhD program today. A burnt down parking lot. Oh my gosh. Also, to promo the stream, it would be so cool to collab with other creators. Maya does a ton with animal facts, and it's so fun doing the PowerPoint presentation on something random with people who know nothing about the topic. Oh, that's a good idea. Was watching a TikTok of yours and I was like, I wish it was a Tuesday stream, LOL. Me and the Villages stream. The Villages stream was iconic. I spent probably 20 hours making that stream because I didn't have a job that week, because I was like right after I'd quit my corporate job. So that was a lot. And it was so fun. Like, that shit fueled me. I loved making that stream. It was so, so, so fun. As I continue to choke on my own spit. So, what was your major and degree? My major is really, really fucking long. I have a bachelor's of science in interdisciplinary social sciences is the name of it. My actual diploma just says social sciences. Within that program, you had to pick a primary concentration. Mine was sociology. So whenever people say, what was your major? I say sociology. Because the majority of the classes I was taking were sociology. Why didn't you just major in sociology? I don't know. Because I went to like a new student day, like before college started, like where you register for your classes and stuff. And I listened to this presentation about this new major that was interdisciplinary. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting and really cool. And then I did it. And I really didn't think anything beyond that. So, no, hashtag no regrets though. I learned so much in college. I would say in college, when I was there, I was like, this isn't challenging at all because I wasn't being challenged from a grade or studying perspective. I went to a very, very, very competitive and rigorous high school. It was a public high school, but it was still very competitive and very, very rigorous. So my college classes were a lot easier than my high school classes in terms of workload, in terms of difficulty of the test, just like very objective things. But the part that I don't think I was giving myself credit for at the time is that the stuff I was learning in high school, a lot of it I found to be incredibly boring. And the stuff that I was learning in college, I found it to be so interesting. So when I was saying, oh, I'm not learning anything, what I meant was I'm not being tortured. Like, I don't feel like I'm being actively tortured, which I had always associated, like, school with torture in high school. So that in college, when I was, like, actually really enjoying it, it didn't feel like I was learning. But that's actually the best way to learn. And I just learned an incredible amount. Like I said, I don't think my writing got better. I don't think I became a better studier. I don't think anything of that. But I feel like I got such a good understanding of the world around me and how different systems play into each other. And that's why I don't regret doing that weird major instead of just majoring in sociology, because I had to take economics classes, I had to take political science classes. I took a little bit of everything and then to like see the lenses of each other. Like it was just a really, really cool program. Not so much for getting a job, but for learning. For me, I loved it. And like I am very privileged in the fact that my parents paid for it and it was pretty cheap because I had a partial tuition waiver. So that was cool. I was very depressed in college from like a social perspective. I was like really didn't have much of an identity, like not in a bad way. I just literally didn't know anything about myself and I didn't have like very many healthy habits and things like that. And so leaving an environment where I was like very structured to going to being like on your own was very hard for me. And then also, like I've told you guys, like I studied abroad. I was moving a lot, so I didn't live in a dorm. I didn't stay in the same campus for a year. Like there were a lot of factors at play, but overall, I would say it was a good experience. I always say like I loved college academically. I did not like college socially. I also went to school in Tallahassee, Florida. I went to FSU, and I don't particularly like Tallahassee, Florida. Like that, which is fine. And like, I'm not a big drinker and I don't like being in crowds. And like in college, kind of the thing to do is drink and be in crowds. And like I was saying earlier, I didn't have a very well-developed identity. So I didn't have a ton of like hobbies or passions or things like that. So even though I could like make friends, like it was never like, oh, I don't have anyone to talk to. Like I would be friendly with people and have friends. I felt like I didn't have super deep relationships because they weren't rooted in like something, if that makes sense. But yeah, I could go on and on about that. And I think that it's good too, because I think we have, and I tell my students about that too, not in as personal of a way I just did with you all. Like I'm a little more adult about it. But what was I about to say? Oh, I think like we really paint this narrative of like college is the best 4 years of your life. College is the best time of your life. And that just was not my experience. I would say the best times of my life was ages like 23 to now. I also graduated college when I was 20. So like, obviously I didn't have much of an identity. I was 20 years old. So like, to me, I don't like when people are like, oh, it's the best time of your life, it's the best time of your life. Like, one, you're saying that because it was walkable, you didn't have a job, and you were drinking a lot. Like, you can recreate that if you really tried, I guess. Maybe not the job part, but you get what I'm saying. I work as a TA, and the first year student writing has taken a significant dip in the last 3-ish years I've been grading. Yeah. But yeah, so when people always say, like, college was the best 4 years of my life, for me, 1, it was 2.5 years. 2, it wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst either. Like, I think your bachelor's was a 2-year degree. No, I have a 4-year degree, but I did dual enrollment in high school, and I took like a shit ton of AP classes and passed all the exams for them. So when I was 18 years old, starting college as a freshman, credit-wise, I was in the 2nd semester of my sophomore year. And I also did summer school twice. So that's how I graduated in 2.5 years. So like, college was a time of growth, and there were definitely a lot of fun moments and a lot of really good experiences, and I definitely learned a lot, but I would not say it was the best time of my life, which is fine. So again, we're still talking about me, which is great. That's kind of the whole point of this, I guess. But the whole point of tonight is to be talking about the bonus army. Yes, I do think only being there for a short period affected it, because like I said, I didn't feel like I had super deep relationships, and deep relationships take time. And like, I was in Panama for 9 months. I was in Spain for 3 months. And then I was in Tallahassee for 1.5 years. So like, you're not going to build a super close, long-lasting friendship in those amounts of time. The one super close friendship from college that like I still very much have, and like we are still very much in contact, I went to her wedding like a year ago, I think, is a friend of mine who we met when we were studying in Panama, and then we like became super fast friends, super close, and then went to Tallahassee at the same time and lived together there as well, because that's how we met, is we were like random roommates together. So me and her are still super close to this day, but I think that's like, we were together the whole time through all those transitions. So yeah. Alrighty. This is a good explanation of burnt down parking lot. I transferred colleges after sophomore year. It took me halfway through junior year to feel settled, and by then I only had 1.5 years left. I still talk to one bestie every day, but the study groups and random going out teams have definitely faded. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like I was like, oh my god, I have no one to eat lunch with. Like, I would make friends with people, go out sometimes, but I don't really like to party that much. So it just wasn't my vibe. I loved your Panama lore. Yes. Making friends post-grad. I would say making friends post-grad, I have had a relatively easy time with. There were times in my life that it's been easier or harder for different factors, but I have friends that I made post-grad. A lot of my friends I've met through work, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. But yeah, I know that's something that a lot of adults really struggle with, is like making friendships post-grad, like with other adults. And honestly, I think part of it is because I'm in a couple, and I think like the way our society is set up is very coupley. So that's like an easier way to make friends too, is making like a couple friend. You know what I'm saying? Do people who went to college feel like having family support systems impact their experience, or it's a place separate from that? I think it depends on the person. Post-grads I've become friends with are people that I've worked with. I don't think that's wrong or bad necessarily, though. To be like, I think if you're making friends at work and then also hanging out with them outside of work, I think that that's fine. But I think if like your only friends are through work at work, then like maybe we branch out a little bit. Making friends as a single person post-grad is the 7th layer of hell. Yeah, I can see that. I went to university at the age of 23. It was hard to make friends. Yeah, there's like you guys are playing distract the teacher, and you're really good at it. Like, you're really, really good at it. All my adult friends are couple friends that I met through my boyfriend. Exactly. So like, some of our friends we met because my fiance plays in a kickball league, and there's like a fair amount of couples in the kickball league. So we went out with them a bunch of times. Like that, it's just, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, the studies are right. Like it very much, that's my experience. So you guys are done distracting me. We're here to learn. We've been here for 20 minutes and we're here to learn. So this event about the bonus army took place in the Great Depression. If you don't know what the Great Depression is, oh my God, you got fired today? I'm sorry. This is the perfect stream because we're talking about the Great Depression. So lots of people got fired then. The period was characterized by high rates of unemployment, poverty, drastic reductions in industrial production and international trade, widespread bank and business failures. A bank failure is when the bank closes down because they lost all your money. So it's not just the bank's employees that are fucked, it's everyone. Where was I? Okay, so it really started with the Wall Street crash of 1929. I just kind of wanted to give you context of what the Great Depression is. We're going to go back to World War I. I know that the event we're talking about is during the Great Depression, but this is just really relevant. Like, bear with me. Bear with me. So World War I, also known as the Great War, they didn't call it World War I. Because think about it. Why would they call it World War I? They even dared to call it, get ready, the war to end all wars. Imagine if you could tell those people about Vietnam. So this was a global conflict between the Allies and the Central Powers. It was mainly in Europe and the Middle East, but also Africa and Asia, so everywhere. There were many important developments in weaponry. That's part of why this war was so devastating from their perspective at the time, is because you got to think the Gilded Age was right before this, so there was really rapid advancement in technology, and that technology was put into weapons, chemical weapons, aircraft, artillery, machine guns. A lot of those things were very, very new. So it was the deadliest conflict in history at the time. It resulted in 30 million military casualties, plus another 8 million civilian deaths from war-related causes and genocide. The movement of large number of people was also a major factor in the deadly Spanish flu. You also got to think about World War I is one of the first times that people were really multiple groups moving all around the world at the same time because of technology. Obviously, immigration has existed for all of human history. People have been moving. I'm going to sneeze. It's going to happen again. Now I'm actually concerned I'm sick. It's going to happen again. Okay, that one felt like I'm done. I had tissues here the whole time. Why was I just sneezing into my hand? I know you're supposed to do it in your elbow, but it always gets in my hair, and I feel like that's worse. God, I'm going to sneeze again. I feel it. You guys, it's not funny. It's stuck. I hate this feeling. So, what was I saying? The Spanish flu was really bad because World War I had technology to move people very quickly. So before, it would take a long ass time for people to move from point A to point B. Now they can do it in just a couple days. So, Jesus, I hate this. So, disease spreading is getting worse. I'm spreading the disease. That was disgusting. How did this impact Americans? The United States was directly involved in World War I, but not until 1917, so we were super late to the war. It started in 1914. The Declaration of Neutrality ended after basically Germany was violating a lot of stuff, low-key threatening us. That could be another stream for another day. So we were not involved in the literal sense from the beginning, but we played a major role in supplying the Allies. So before we got involved, we were low-key kind of involved. So we're making a lot of money selling weapons. This is one of the first times the U.S. is really in their war industrial complex. This is the OG. I know people say that World War II is the OG of that, but it really is World War I. World War I, people are World War II is important because of X, Y, and Z, and all those reasons are also true about World War I. I think World War I is really ignored, honestly. Time is a flat circle. It's about to get worse. So, when the war began, the U.S. economy was in a recession, but then we had an economic boom from them purchasing our fucking weapons, like I said. The long period of U.S. neutrality made the ultimate conversion of the economy to a wartime basis easier than it otherwise would have been. Real plant and equipment were added, and because they were added in response to demand from other countries already at war, they were added precisely in those sectors where they would be needed once the U.S. entered the war. It's good for the economy. They're opening weapons factories and then they're using them for other countries, and then we were using them for our own. So they're making lots of money. Entry into the war in 1917 also unleashed massive federal spending, which shifted national production from civilian goods, so like toasters, to war goods. Between 1914 and 18, some 3 million people were added to the military and 500,000 to the government, and unemployment went from 7.9% to 1.4%. So, yeah. This was in part because workers were drawn to the new manufacturing jobs, and the military draft removed many young men from the civilian labor force. So when like lots of men went to war, more people got jobs. Horrible. Side note about PTSD, they called it shell shock. So in the wake of World War I, a lot of the veterans were like really messed up, and their symptoms were similar to what had previously been associated with hysterical women. So where they used to just be like, that bitch is crazy, lock her up. Now the men are acting like that. So they're like, whoa, men are doing it, so we need to take it seriously. Now we know that that behavior is PTSD. So the women that were probably acting like that probably had something horrible done to them, I would imagine. They didn't know that or think to figure that out until it started happening to men, because women's healthcare continues to be horrible. That is a continuity over U.S. history. So, English physician Charles Myers first wrote the paper on shell shock in 1915, so right when the war began, actually, or like a year into it, and he said that he thought that these symptoms actually did stem from a physical injury. He thought they came from brain trauma, but then he tested it and that did not hold up, because there were lots of guys who did have the same brain trauma and then like were not acting like that, and we now know that this is PTSD. Part of the reason that the PTSD was so bad in this war in a way that they had not really learned about before is because of, like I said, the military equipment. So this is bigger, stronger, scarier weapons. This is also before the Geneva Convention. You got to think, like, World War II hasn't happened yet. We're still in World War I. So there's, like, no rules about, like, chemical warfare and, like, things like that. Not that people follow those, but they are technically there. Cough, cough. Israel not following them. So, like, imagine getting drafted from Kansas and then someone just kills you with a flamethrower. Like a flamethrower? Flamethrower. For real? For real. And then this is the trenches. This is a very famous photo. I've shown these two photos to my students so many times. The trenches. So, like, yeah, obviously they're acting super not okay. Like, obviously they come back and scream when someone turns the lights on. Oh, trench foot. They would get, like, infections in their feet. Yeah, World War I was not good. Not that any war is good, but, like, World War I was really hitting. And then there was a pandemic. I'm just telling you all of this so you can understand the headspace our country is in when we get to the Great Depression. So then there's a pandemic. It was called the Spanish flu, but it shouldn't have been called the Spanish flu, because the only reason it was called the Spanish flu is because Spain was not, like, censoring the newspaper. All the other countries are at war, so they're like, shut the fuck up about people being sick. We have enough problems. Like, we have enough issues. We don't need to talk about people being sick. But Spain was neutral. So Spain was like, a lot of people are dying, question mark. Anyone know what's going on there? So everyone was like, they started it. He who smelt it dealt it. But it didn't start in Spain. So, like, it should have never been called that. But everyone else was just censoring the mail. It killed a whole bunch of people. It was the earliest documented case was actually in Kansas with a World War I veteran coming back. But further cases were recorded in France, Germany, the United Kingdom. It was basically all over. I don't think they know exactly where it came from because, like, soldiers from all over the world were moving all over the world. So they were bringing diseases with them. And yeah, it was a shit show. So the estimated range of deaths is from 17 million to 50 million, possibly as high as 100 million. So 17 million to 100 million tells me that we're not keeping great track of this because they didn't want to talk about it because war. They were like, shh, 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 shh. Was it global because of the war transmitted by soldiers? Soldiers and other people, like government officials going back and forth. The war created a massive increase in international travel. which I know sounds weird because it's a war, but think it's 1918. So, like, people don't get on, like, a Delta Airlines flight to Dubai back then. So because of the war, lots more people are moving, lots more trade is happening. There's just more opportunities for people to carry diseases. And because they're carrying them faster, as opposed to, like, if I was on, like, a Viking ship that's, like, wood and has no engine, and when I got on the ship, I had a disease, I would start having symptoms probably, especially with, like, a flu-like. I would probably start having symptoms within a couple days, and then they'll, like, kill me or throw me overboard or I'll die or whatever. But because the ships are getting faster, they have engines, they have trains, they have steel, they have these things, now people are going multiple places before they have their symptoms. So that's why disease is spreading, like, so much faster. So you guys were saying, oh my God, time is a circle. Hey guys, this article is from 2020 and they did a study. It says the federal government did it, so I highly doubt that they will be doing this again or leaving this up for a very long time. But the paper basically examined that the flu pandemic is correlated to the gains in the Nazi Party. Yeah. 17 to 100 million, just say you don't know. I'm literally reading about the rise of the Third Reich right now, and guys, it's not fucking great. Yeah, it's not good. And literally I put time is a circle. We're all the same. So this is from this article. The New Academia paper produced by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. I don't know why they're doing this and doing this study, but I'm glad that they are. Concludes that deaths caused by the 1918 influenza pandemic profoundly shaped German society in subsequent years and contributed to the strengthening of the Nazi Party. The paper examined municipal spending levels and voter extremism in Germany from the time of the initial influenza outbreak until 1933 and shows that areas which experienced a greater relative population decline due to the pandemic spent less per capita on their inhabitants in the following decade. I need to blow my nose and I'm going to step aside to do it because I don't want you to hear it, but you probably still will. So I'm just going to go out here real quick. This is very real teacher moment. Okay. I feel a lot better. Wow, I should have done that like 10 minutes ago. I don't really sound better, but I feel it. So anyway, so basically what they're saying is that experiences or areas that experienced a big population decline, like a lot of people died, they did not spend as much on their citizens. Like their social services, I guess, decreased and like the amount of willingness to take care of people. This feels very similar to what I have noticed recently, especially over the last couple years, in like a rise in individualism in America. America has always been a very individualistic culture, but I feel like I'm starting to see that really, really even more so. And I think that like pandemic can really affect that because it makes you scared and you're like, I only want to take care of myself. Like it, you know, it just makes you scared and brings out the worst in everybody. A bunch of people now having disabilities correlates to the increase in anti-disability rhetoric. Exactly, because a pandemic is a mass disabling event, just the same way like a war is, the same way a natural disaster is. People experience sometimes lifelong consequences from any time that they get sick. And I think a lot of people have really tried to like politicize that with COVID, but that's always been the case for everything ever. Like even like the flu, if an infant gets the flu and it's like very bad, it can affect their development and affect them for life. I don't know why that's like suddenly groundbreaking information to people. So the paper also showed that influenza deaths of 1918 were correlated with an increase in the share of votes won by right-wing extremists, such as the Nazi Party, in future elections. Together, the lower spending and flu-related deaths had a strong effect on the share of votes won by extremists, specifically the extremist National Socialist Party, the Nazis. So even though that's kind of unrelated to what we're talking about, I felt like it was super, super interesting, and I just wanted to bring that up. So I couldn't find a article about this. I didn't try that hard though, but I just know it from my brain. I know I learned it at one point. After World War I and after the pandemic of 1918, Americans started spending a lot of money because the pandemic was horrible for the economy. So a lot of people lost their jobs. Even though World War I was really good for the economy because it was wartime, there was not as big of availability of consumer goods. So like your country goes through this horrible war and then goes through this pandemic, and then you're in the 1920s and you have like such a strong desire to spend money now that the economy is good and people aren't dying and it's great. So the 1920s are known as the Roaring 20s. This is like post World War I. Everyone forgets to talk about the pandemic. That's marked by a general feeling of novelty. There was a lot of modernity. I can't say that word. So like the flapper style, the shorter hair, new music, like Harlem Renaissance, a lot going on right now culturally. Jazz, dancing, women getting the right to vote. Like there was some cool stuff happening in the 1920s. So most of the profit generated in this economic boom was invested in speculation on the stock market. Speculation is when you want to make money. So I'm investing into something to try and make money off of it. And banks had like no regulation back then. Banks had literally like nada regulation. They were literally doing whatever they wanted. So they had very loose lending and widespread debt. So like when I go to the bank and I'm like, can I have some money? They want to see everything about me ever. They want to see my credit score. They want to see what other loans I have. They want to see my assets. They want to see everything. Back then, that was not the case. So that like they were just being very, 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 very fucking irresponsible, essentially. So by 1929, spending had declined. This is also when installment buying became a thing. So the average American was in much more debt because they were like, oh, I'm paying off my car and my toaster and my refrigerator. Also, there's all these new inventions of all these new home things. So like the banks are spending irresponsibly. Americans are spending irresponsibly. It's just a lot going on. And then in 1929, spending started to decline because, like I said, a lot of the spending was on consumer goods. You don't buy a new car every year. You don't buy a new refrigerator every year. You don't buy a new vacuum every year. So like for the first years of the 1920s, it was like spend, 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 spend. And then it just naturally started to slow down as people all had the products that they wanted not everyone, but you get what I'm saying. So share values still continued to rise. There was also a lot of stock market manipulation and lying. We did not have any stock market regulatory agency back then, so fraud was very, very rampant. So share values continued to rise until the October 1929 crash, like I mentioned earlier. That is considered the start of the Great Depression, is the economy crashing, or the stock market crashing. That's what's considered the start of it. And the slide continued until July 1932. Also, people lost confidence in the financial system. Obviously, they lost confidence in the financial system because their banks lost all their money. Like, what's that old-ass Christmas movie? It's a Wonderful Life or something. I think it's or a Beautiful Life, where everyone's at the bank and they're, like, screaming. It's because the bank lost their money. So that's why, like, not really anymore. Most of these people passed, RIP. But people that lived through the Great Depression would like refuse to use the bank, and they would like keep cash in their mattress. Like they didn't have confidence in the financial system. Probably because the financial system lost their entire life savings. I like how they're kind of victim blaming. They're like, they lost confidence. No, you guys lost everything. So by 1933, unemployment was 25%. 1/3 of farmers had lost their land. 9,000 banks had gone out of business, and we only had 25,000. And again, when I say a bank going out of business, I do not mean that they returned everyone's money and then closed their doors. I mean, they closed their doors and said, sorry, we lost all your money. That's people's retirements. That's people's like money to pay their bills. So then tons of people got evicted because they lost all their money when they didn't even fucking do anything. Like they didn't recklessly spend. They didn't recklessly invest in the stock market. They didn't commit fraud, but they just lost everything. So that sucked for a lot of people. President Herbert Hoover was unwilling to intervene. He literally did almost nothing. Until 1930, he signed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, which worsened the Depression. So yeah, time is a circle. Basically, we put tariffs on all of our stuff, and so all the other countries passed retaliatory tariffs, and trade decreased even more. Trade decreased even more. So yeah. My grandpa often told me about the day their money became worthless and how distraught they were. LOL at the Ferris Bueller lecture, literally. So here's some stats about it. Like we said, unemployment was 25%, 12.8 million people were jobless. Industrial production plummeted by 47%, our GDP fell by 30%, and the stock market lost 90% of its value. So things are bad. Things are not good. Let's get into the bonus expeditionary force. Only 40 minutes in, just a simple 40 minutes in. So the bonus army was a group of demonstrators who gathered in Washington, D.C. to demand their bonus. They were supposed to receive a bonus because of fighting in World War I. Do you see why I had to tell you about World War I? You needed to know what these men fought through to understand who they were in this moment. And then they're living through the Great Depression. Like, you just needed to know. I'm sorry. So they wanted to get their bonus early because they were like, we have no money. You're supposed to give us this money later, but we would like it right now. They were led by a guy named Walter W. Waters, but I also saw other people as the alleged leader, so it seems like a couple people were leading it. So let's start at the beginning. We're going to go back to 1776. Yeah, you heard right. So the practice of wartime military bonuses began when our nation began, 1776, as a payment for the difference between what a soldier earned and what he could have earned had he not enlisted. So it was a bonus. This was passed by the practice derived from English legislation passed in 1592, where they provided medical care and maintenance for disabled veterans and bonuses for serving soldiers. And in August 1776, Congress adopted the first national pension law, where it provided half pay for life for disabled veterans. Considerable pressure was applied to expand benefits to match the British system. So yeah, George Washington became an advocate of this. It literally goes back to day one, is what I wanted to tell you. When the Continental Army, that's who fought in the Revolutionary War, demobilized, hundreds of Pennsylvania war veterans marched on Philadelphia, surrounded the State House where Congress was in session, and demanded back pay. Congress fled to Princeton, New Jersey, and the U.S. Army expelled war veterans. So, unfortunately, we've done this before. Congress progressively passed legislation covering bonuses and pensions in 1788, so 7 years later, and eventually extended eligibility to widows in 1836. So it's very much a part of our nation's history to give veterans bonuses and then also not pay them. And then they attack you, and then you attack them with the new military. That's in the fabric of our nation. So before World War I, military soldiers' service bonuses were for land and money. The Continental Private Army received 100 acres and $80 in 2017 money, which is irrelevant. That would be $1,900, so it's probably like $2,500 today if I had to guess. At the war's end, while major generals got 1,100 acres. In 1855, Congress increased the land grant minimums to 160 acres. They reduced the eligibility requirement to 14 days of military service or one battle. This was also during the, quote, Indian Wars. This is what I find really, really fucking interesting, is it seems like the way they are choosing to pay the veterans is really based on their current objective at the time. So, like, way back when, they used the army to expel them and, like, didn't want to pay them. But now they're saying, oh, we'll give you a ton of land even if you only fought in just one battle. Sure, it's not a coincidence. This is like the Manifest Destiny era of them wanting to rob the natives of their land and go out there. So that payment of land to the veteran isn't really for the benefit of the veteran. It's to harm the natives and to further the U.S. agenda of expansion at all cost. Very interesting. I didn't even think of that till right now. The provision of land became a political issue and they started arguing over it, so they abandoned that and went to a cash-only system. Then the Spanish-American War veterans did not receive a bonus, and after World War I, that became a political matter when they only received a $60 bonus. So the American Legion, created in 1919, led a political movement for additional bonuses. So yeah, the veterans of the Spanish-American War only got $1,000, so that's unfortunate. I can't read, but still $1,000. Also to support slavery, I'm sure. Oh yeah, that's another good point. In 1855, that is pre-Civil War. So, Veterans bonuses have historically been politicized. They've historically been changed, been argued over, and been politicized. And y'all know how I feel about the military. Y'all know how I feel about war and all of those things. Y'all know how I feel about the military doing unrequired acts of violence, breaking laws all the time. But all that to say, when I look at individual veterans, I do think that our government does have a responsibility to them, because like, you had this person put their life on the line and be in an extremely dangerous situation for the benefit of the nation as a whole. Like, I think it's an obligation that you take care of that person, kind of in the same way that, like, if your neighbor helps you with something, you should like offer them some food. Like, I think it's just like polite. You know what I mean? So where was I? On May 15th, 1924, President Calvin Coolidge vetoed a bill granting bonuses to the World War I veterans, and he said, patriotism bought and paid for is not patriotism. What the fuck does that mean? And 1924 is 6 years after the war ended. So like, they already did the patriotic thing and fought. So why do you, really? And you vetoed it? You vetoed it? And I really think this has the same energy as when teachers are like, we need more money to pay our bills. And education leaders are like, you shouldn't be in it for the money. You should be in it for the kids. Like, okay, that's a great sentiment, but like, my mortgage is due no matter what the morality is with my job. Like, what do you mean? So, checks and balances. 1924, Calvin Coolidge vetoes the bill granting bonuses to the veterans, but the bonus bill was endorsed by Henry Cabot Lodge and Charles Curtis, and Congress overrode the veto. What? Checks and balances in action. So this enacted the World War Adjusted Compensation Act. Each veteran was supposed to receive $1 for each day of service, up to a maximum of $500, which is $9,200 in 2024, and $125 a day for overseas service, with a maximum of $625, which would be $11,000 in 2024 money. So whether you were domestic or overseas, you still got paid. But if you were overseas, you got a lot more, because that means you were in battle. $11,000 is a nice chunk of change. Would I risk my life for $11,000? Probably not. Can't say that I would. But $11,000 is nothing to turn your nose up at. So deducted from this was $60, because they got $60 when they were discharged. And anyone who had an amount of $50 or less were paid immediately. This is the kicker, though. Anyone that was supposed to get more than $50 would get it in 20 years. Not 20 years after the war, 20 years after the bill was passed in 1924. So that's 26 years after the war. Yeah. Perfect. There were over 3 million of these issued. The combined value was $3.64 billion, or in 2023 money, $67 billion, so massively expensive. Congress established a trust fund to receive 20 annual payments of $112 million that with interest would finance this. The veterans could borrow against the face value of the fund. And because of the Great Depression, they increased the amount that you could borrow. But again, like, you are borrowing it. There was congressional support for the immediate redemption of military service certificates, but Hoover and Republican congressmen were opposed to this, because then they would have had to raise taxes to cover the cost. And they were worried that economic recovery would be slowed. I guess they wanted people working and not just like living off their bonuses. And the veterans of foreign affairs wars continued to press the federal government and try and get them to allow early redemption of this, because 20 years really is crazy. And they called them tombstone bonuses because they would mature on the veteran's birthday in 1945. And World War I ended in 1918. And most of these veterans were born in the late 1800s, and like we didn't really have that great of medical care back then. So I'm not saying all of them would have died by then, but like a pretty significant number of them would be dead by then. So I see why they called them tombstone bonuses. So May 1932, jobless World War I veterans organized a group called the Bonus Expeditionary Forces. They called the U.S. soldiers the Expeditionary Forces in World War I. So they were like, we were the Expeditionary and now we're the Bonus Expeditionary. So they went on a march to Washington, D.C., and their goal was to get the bonus payment now because they really needed the money. So like I told you, 1932 is like one of the worst years of the Great Depression. Unemployment is 25%. I can't imagine that the men that signed up to go march across the country had a job. Not in an insulting way, just in like if you had a job in the Great Depression, you were not going to take time off because they would fire you and find someone else. So, God, I'm so tired of sneezing. Water's good. My straw's falling out. So, if the movement had an official beginning, it would have been in Portland, Oregon. There's a lot of, I don't want to say discrepancy because people aren't really arguing about it, but it's not really closely documented where this started. Like, whose idea was this exactly, and where was the first, like a lot was going on at one time. But the most documented that we know about was 400 veterans gathering in Portland, Oregon under Walter Waters, and they began the trek to Washington on a freight train. So what happened before those 400 veterans got there, we do not know, but they're there. So it was loaned to them for free by the rail authorities. Rare railroad company, W. Hell yeah. And after exiting the train in Iowa, they hitched rides and walked the rest of the way to Washington, and small splinter groups reached the capital on their own. So like I said, it wasn't just like one group moving in a pack. It's like these 400 people started it. There were other splinter groups that joined along the way, because you got to think about how many people fought in World War I, and if you see a group of people like hitchhiking and you're also homeless, like it's not crazy to be like, where are y'all going? I completely see how this grew so quickly. So some of it said Walter M. Waters, some said Walter W. Waters, so I don't know. But this is the guy that is considered to have started it, allegedly. This is a picture of them. Washington or bust, bonus we trust. Like, it's a lot of guys. I completely see how they picked people up along the way. This is one of their camping sites in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. So it's not just veterans. A lot of them had their wives and children as well. Like it's a whole family endeavor. Everyone in the family is together. This is veterans in Cleveland, Ohio before heading to Washington, D.C. Like, you can tell they're ready to get this money. They are ready to get this money. This is kind of giving like the Forrest Gump walk. Because like, why the hell not? Why not? If you are literally homeless, on the street, eating scraps and garbage, starving, do you want to walk to DC and we're going to go ask Congress to give us the money they're supposed to? Okay. Like, literally, why the hell not? So this says this is the leaders of the Bonus Expeditionary Force. Like I said, there's very much conflicting things here, not much documentation. World War veterans, because you see they don't call them World War I, they call them World War veterans. World War veterans in charge of the demonstration in Washington for the purpose of persuading Congress to pay now their adjusted service claims. They are left to right Elmer Jensen, Salt Lake City, Regimental Commander Camp Number 2, W.W. Waters, Portland, Oregon, Commander-in-Chief, and George Kleinholz of Portland, Oregon, Regimental Commander Camp 1, and A.F. Taylor, also of Portland, Commander-in-Chief, Oregon delegation. So it's a group of guys. That's all we know. So they arrive. Some are from Pennsylvania, some are marching in from DC, they're all marching into DC. Some are from Pennsylvania. We saw that group in Ohio. They're everywhere. They're coming in. Lots of people here. This one says it was 25,000. I struggled to find like a final correct number of exactly how many people were there. Most of the bonus army had camped in a Hooverville in the Anacostia Flats, which is now Section C of Anacostia Park. Anacostia. I don't know how to say that, but Hopefully someone in DC is here. What month did this march happen in? It was going for a while. Like, it seems like January to May. It was a swampy, muddy area away from the Federal Corps of Washington. Other veterans lived much closer in partially demolished buildings on Pennsylvania Avenue near 3rd Street Southwest. So some are in camps, some are in abandoned buildings. How did it get from 400 to 25,000? Remember how I was saying they picked people up along the road, and the original group in Portland was 400, but there were other groups that heard about this and joined as well. So that's how it just got really big, really quite big. And this march they're talking about is another march. There were multiple marches in DC of the unemployed. Let me see if I can Google like a final number. Let me see what the internet, how many people were in the bonus army? Okay, see, this is what I mean. 15,000 to 45,000. So we don't know. We don't know how, thousands of people were there. Anacostia. Thank you. So here's another picture of one of their camps. You can see, like, they literally have cars. Like, this is a small city. This is, in fact, a small city. Another picture of one of their camps. They're in tents. They're building little shacks. They're here. This is where they live now. There's another one. See, this one's in DC. They have American flags, very patriotic. It was also, they created like a newspaper, I guess, the BFE News. So I guess that is how they recruited people. Pre-social media, that's impressive. It is very impressive. And I think it's really a sign of the times. Like, people were desperate. People are much more willing to engage in protest and social action when they're extremely desperate. And then this will come up again. This is their newspaper, the Bonus Expeditionary Forces newspaper. Communist principles are counter to our plans. Lots of people accuse them of being communist. So imagine being one of the politicians. Like, what do you mean you're here? Like, what do you mean you're here? You guys remember that TikTok where it was like the couch guy where the girl comes and surprises him and he just literally looks so uncomfortable? I feel like that's what this is. Like, the politicians are like, you're here. Thank you for your service. Like, they were not expecting them to show up, I fear. So they're just living in the park. I've never joined a live. Ooh, welcome. They're living in the park at this point, which is good. This is against federal law, but the DC police superintendent got permission for them to be there from his friend who was the director of public buildings and public parks. So even though it was illegal, the police chief was like, can we just kind of let them? And his friend was like, yeah, I guess. Because again, it's the Great Depression. Like, they have very limited resources. So at first, they were just kind of ignoring this. Like, they were just like, let's ignore that. The chosen site was in the historically African-American side of the park. There were tennis courts and baseball diamond nearby that the children of the camp would use. The baseball diamond, they would be out there playing, which is very community. The War Department refused a request by Senator James Hamilton Lewis to set up billets. Billets, let me Google it again. I Googled it and then I forgot. It's like a building material, I think. Billets. A billet is like a temporary housing for soldiers. So a senator was like, let's get them like at least some temporary housing. And the War Department was like, no. So the veterans and their wives and women and children lived in shelters that they built from garbage. So old lumber, boxes, scrap tin, tents, things like that. And the Shack City was nicknamed Camp Marks after the friendly police chief, Captain S.J. Marks. So not even the guy that let them stay there, but I guess the captain that was nice to them. They called it Camp Marks. So here is where they were camped. Anacostia Park is like long and skinny, I guess. I've never been there. And they were like parked on the south side on the river. They were also, like I said, camped in a lot of the abandoned buildings that were more like what you think of as Washington, D.C., like where the White House is, where the Capitol is, all of that stuff. If my husband said we're going to Shack City, but think about it. Think about it. Starving on the street versus Shack City. That's the choice that these people are making. I am confident none of the people in this camp left a home with a real roof and a real kitchen. I am confident no one left a good situation to do this. I am confident the majority of the people here were already experiencing homelessness or very close to it. You would not drop everything, walk across the country to camp for an indefinite amount of time if you had other plausible options. That's why I feel a lot of empathy for these people. And they were strict. They're very strict. You'll see why I'm saying I would rather live here than be homeless on my own. So it was tightly controlled by the veterans. They laid out streets. They built sanitation facilities. They set up an internal police force and held daily parades. I don't know if that means like parade positive or I guess parade is always positive. I don't know. A vibrant community arose revolving around several key sections. They had a religious tent where marchers could be heard expressing forbearance, trust in God, and gratitude for what they had compared to other victims of the Depression. Also popular was the Salvation Army Lending Library, where people would write letters home in a makeshift post office, and stamps were more prized than cigarettes. And to live in the camps, the veterans were required to register and prove that they had been honorably discharged or show their bonus certificate. So that at that point, a membership card would be issued. So like when I tell you this is a city, this is its own city. And the superintendent of the DC police worked with camp leaders to supply the camp with food and supplies. So that's what I mean. Like if you are homeless and starving, this is better than being homeless and starving. Like at least they have food and a bathroom here. That's slightly better. And this is totally separate from the Hoovervilles, right? Weird that it happened twice. I mean, not separate. This was considered a Hooverville. This is how Hoovervilles looked. This particular Hooverville is veterans that are running a very tight, strict thing. Most Hoovervilles were just like a bunch of people together. So on June 15th, 1932, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Wright-Patman bonus bill to move forward the date for them to get their cash bonuses. 6,000 marchers massed at the U.S. Capitol on June 17th when the Senate was going to vote on the bill. So it passes the House, they're waiting for the Senate to vote, and the Senate votes it down. The Senate votes it fucking down. There are thousands of angry veterans outside right now, and you voted it down? Why? Whoa, 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 whoa. You voted it down? That was really stupid. That was really, really, really stupid. So, that was on June 17th. The veterans do not leave. Things are about to get worse. On July 28th, President Herbert Hoover ordered the police superintendent to clear the buildings. So, previously, they were like, let's let the protesters just like drift away on their own. But the protesters weren't drifting away. Because like I said, this situation is better than being homeless on your own in the Great Depression. So they decide they're going to clear the abandoned buildings. They're coming in to clear the abandoned buildings. They said when the veterans rioted, the way I interpret this, when you went into the home of a group of people that has PTSD, you broke into the home and community. Because at this point, they've been living there for months. You broke into the home of a group of men who have PTSD from war. How the fuck did you think that was gonna go? Let's raid the trench warfare guys with nothing to lose. Great plan. Literally said it way better than I could have. That might be chat of the night. And your username is Britney Spears for president, which I agree with emotionally. Literally, maybe not. But I do agree with you that honestly, she would probably be better than what we're dealing with right now. They also have nothing else to do, I'm assuming. With so many of them unemployed, why wouldn't they spend their days tormenting the government that tormented them? Exactly. So, an officer, George Schinault, drew his revolver and shot 2 veterans, William Hushka and Eric Carlson, who both died later, which is very, very sad. Here's photos of them. Rest in peace. Clearing homeless encampments is still happening all over the place. Ditto to everyone talking about history as a circle. Exactly. It's literally all they have. Most of my prior knowledge from this comes from an episode of Doctor Who. Andrew Garfield was there. I haven't watched Doctor Who. So William Hushka was an immigrant to the United States. He was from Lithuania. This is horrifically sad that listen to what he did for this country and how this country fucking treated him. When the U.S. entered World War I, he sold his butcher shop to join the army, and then he moved to Chicago, and they did bury him in Arlington National Cemetery, which is like quite an honor, but like it would have been a bigger honor to not be shot by the police. I think he probably would have preferred that. Eric Carlson is a veteran from Oakland, California. He fought in the trenches of France in World War I, and he is also in the Arlington National Cemetery. So rest in peace to those 2 men. Very, very sad. During a previous riot, the commissioners asked the White House for federal troops, and Hoover passed the request to the Secretary of War, Patrick Hurley, who told MacArthur to take action to disperse the protesters. So those 2 deaths, those were police. Now we're moving to U.S. military. So towards the late afternoon, cavalry, infantry, and tanks and machine guns pushed the bonusers out of Washington. So they literally brought in cavalry, infantry, tanks, and machine guns to push these veterans and their families out of Washington. At 1:40 p.m., General Douglas MacArthur ordered General Perry Miles to assemble troops on the Eclipse immediately south of the White House. Within the hour, the 3rd Cavalry, led by George S. Patton, who was then a major, crossed the Memorial Bridge, with the 12th Infantry arriving by steamer about an hour later. At 4 p.m., Miles told MacArthur that the troops were ready, and MacArthur, like Eisenhower, by now in service uniform, said that Hoover wanted him to be hands-on. So the high-up guys are wearing their uniforms, which I guess is rare, so they can be hands-on, and so that he could issue instructions on the ground and take the rap should there be any unfavorable or critical repercussions. So I guess they're planning to throw this guy under the bus. At 4:45 p.m., commanded by MacArthur, the 12th Infantry, and all of these other people with tanks commanded by Patton formed in Pennsylvania Avenue while thousands of civil service employees left work to line the streets and watch. That's so real. That's so real. I would do the exact same thing. I'm not even going to sit here and say that I wouldn't do that, because I would watch, which is like, it's horrible to watch, but I just can't look away. So the bonus marchers thought that the troops were marching in their honor. They see all the troops line up and they're like, oh my God, they're thanking us for our service in World War I. How kind. And then the cavalry charged at them. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That's literally horrifying. I'm going to wait for you guys to catch up because I just need to hear your reactions to that. Genuinely, genuinely insane. And all of this is the same day. I'm like 90% sure. Like I said, it's kind of hard to find information about this. It's that Jon Snow meme. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. The U.S. really only has one speed. We really, 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 really do. That's actually her. Like, literally, they thought they were marching to honor them. Isn't that horrible? All the oh no's are coming in. Put me in that situation. I'm fighting everyone. Imagine how they felt after realizing they just hyped them up. So after the cavalry charged, the infantry had bayonets and tear gas. They entered the camps, evicting veterans, families, and followers. No shots were fired. Those 2 men are the only people that were shot that we have record of. I feel like the records probably weren't kept that well. So veterans fled across the river to their largest camp. So remember that map I showed you? I'm going to go back and show you again. So this green part where it says the White House in the United States Capitol, that is where it started. That's where the cavalry first charges. The veterans run and they go to the main camp, which is across the river. You see. You get it now? You're getting it? I think you're getting it. So the veterans fled across the river. So President Hoover is like, okay, stop. They left the buildings. They left the important streets. That's what we wanted. Stop. MacArthur ignored the president and ordered a new attack into the camp. So again, the camp that is in a park, the people in charge of the park are okay with it. The local police are okay with it. The veterans are staying there. Like, things are hunky-dory. There's Hoover, not hunky-dory, but you got, like, it's the Depression, so it's obviously not hunky-dory. But that situation, everyone appears to be kind of okay with. And there's Hoovervilles all over the country. So General MacArthur ignores the president and attacks their main camp. He claims that the bonus march was an attempt to overthrow the U.S. government. 55 veterans were injured and 135 were arrested. So genuinely horrific. These are the other deaths. One veteran's wife miscarried because of the event, and a 12-week-old baby died in the hospital after being caught in the tear gas attack. And the government investigated that he died of enteritis, whatever that means. And a hospital spokesperson said the tear gas didn't do it any good. So I guess this baby already had some kind of issue. I don't know what enteritis is. I'm going to look it up. But yeah, they killed a baby. Is the long and short of that. Enteritis. Enteritis is inflammation of the small intestine from contaminated food or water. So I guess, it can also be from Crohn's disease. It can be from a parasite. They probably didn't have it from radiation therapy, I would guess. So yeah, very, very on par for the U.S. military. Like, this is really, really, really tracking for the U.S. government. So Dwight D. Eisenhower, he was president way later, but Dwight D. Eisenhower served as one of MacArthur's junior aides. So the guy that's ignoring the president has a future president working under him. He thought it was wrong for the Army's highest-ranking official to lead an action against fellow American war veterans, and he strongly advised MacArthur against taking any public role. I told that dumb son of a bitch not to go down there. I told him it was no place for the chief of staff. Despite his misgivings, Eisenhower wrote an official report that endorsed MacArthur's conduct. So he was against it, but clearly not against it enough to write it in the official report. But he did say, I told that dumb son of a bitch not to go down there. So, and I also just love to show people this picture of him at any opportunity I get. Like, if I have an opportunity to show this picture, you can bet I'm taking it. I'm taking that opportunity. So, although the troops were ready, Hoover twice sent instructions to MacArthur to not cross the bridge. Both of these instructions were received, but like we said, MacArthur violated it anyway, and they did evict the bonus army from their encampment. The D stands for diva, please. So yeah, so cool. And they were like, oh, we want MacArthur in uniform. We want him to be hands-on. Did they, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but were they like, get rid of him? Like, we're going to say what we need to for PR, but you're going to get rid of him. I don't know if that happened, but that's kind of what it's reading like to me. Here's a picture of the Anacostia buildings that they made being burned. The shacks that the members of the bonus army erected at the Anacostia Flats, burning after attack by the regular army. The fact that we have to differentiate, the fact that it's like this part of our army attacked this part of our former army. Blame game. No one wants to take responsibility per usual. The refusal to follow orders was claimed by MacArthur's Assistant Chief of Staff, George Van Horn Moseley. However, MacArthur's aide, Assistant Secretary of War, some other people all disputed it. So they all said that the orders were never delivered, and then they blamed the Moseley guy for refusing to deliver the orders. So I kind of believe George Van Horn Moseley, because he was like, you guys ignored these orders. And they were like, you never brought us the orders. If he never brought the orders, why would he report this? Like, if it's his fault, why would he be the one bringing it up? It's just like classic gaslighting. And like I said, these shacks at the Anacostia camp were then set on fire, although who set them on fire is somewhat unclear. What did the current army think would happen to them when their service were owner? No, Ellen, you actually were invited. That's what it's giving. That's what I wonder, is the current army was like, they'd never do this to us. They would. And they will. I don't know, literally. We have video. I don't think there's audio, but there is video. So that's awesome. Like I said, I don't think it has sound. It just has like old little movie sounds. It's hard to see, but you can see there's a lot of people gathering. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. Oh, never mind. Shit's getting real. Not gonna skip ahead. Oh, like literally these people have nothing to lose. I can feel the energy radiating through. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Lots of police there. Yeah, get out of here. They start arresting some people.
Police are entering the first of a score of old buildings appropriated by bonus seekers to clear them out.
So see, it's an abandoned building.
Buildings, which are about to be torn down, the eviction proceeded with little trouble. In some spots, the bonus seekers fortified themselves, too strongly placed for the police. 1,500 men of the regular army answered the president's call, cavalry, tanks, and infantry. The president declared that many of those remaining were communists or criminals, with few veterans among them.
Communists and criminals. We've heard that before. This is the same MacArthur that got dishonorably discharged for publicly going against the president in the Korean War. There it is. I thought that's who it was, but I was afraid to say it in case I was wrong. Because I was like, there's a MacArthur that did something really bad later. Not that this wasn't really bad. I love when we have video. Like, hell yeah, we have video from 1918. Hell yeah. This is why we need the National Archives. I would want to work there, but I'm really disorganized. I don't think that I would do well. Tear gas, fire, arresting people. Not a great look. Not a great look. Things are escalating. And Long Island iced teas had a good point. I think the current army knew they'd be treated the same, but they were so afraid of losing the job they had and becoming homeless along with the others. That is a really good point.
Capitol Hill was burned to the ground. All shacks and tents were destroyed after the occupants had taken away their belongings. Some of the departing campers set the dwellings afire with their own hands.
I don't believe that.
Causing a cloud of smoke to swirl upward toward the Capitol itself.
I always forget there were horses in battle back then. I saw a TikTok the other day where it was like horses reacting to dogs being called man's best friend, and it was so fucking funny. The guy was like, no, it's fine. I just like, all those times we went to war, like took bullets together, I thought. It kind of made me sad. They're like, you know, it was your primary mode of transportation for years, but yeah, the dog.
At night, the troops crossed the line of Anacostia and cleared Camp Marks, which blazed for hours. A beacon that the fight was over and all was once more quiet along the Potomac. From Washington by the Army, the last of the bonus seekers set out for Johnstown, Pennsylvania, where they have been given refuge.
They've been given refuge in Pennsylvania. Look at them.
Commander W.W. Walters decided on the Johnstown camp, but he explained. At Johnstown, the 9,000 bonus seekers immediately threw up tents and shacks for themselves and families. The food problem is acute, but donations of groceries and money are keeping the vets in stew and coffee.
No, it wasn't Jake Shane. It wasn't someone that I follow. It just came up. We'll talk about the newspaper coverage. But I think most people probably didn't care because they were concerned about their own food insecurity. This is another video. It's shorter. The bonus army routed. Troops, tanks, and tear gas used to evict 8,000 war veterans in Washington. The least people could do is leave their horses at a horse daycare a few miles from the battlefield. Some of this you already saw, but this footage is a little bit more clear. So, these are the abandoned buildings they're in. They're not even good buildings. They couldn't just let them hang out. And I have seen, in regards to race, it looks like they're dragging this black man down the stairs, which is horrifying. But I did see in the photos of the veterans, it did look like it was not just one race or segregated. It looked like there was some integration happening with the veterans. Hot take, men would be less lonely if they still had their transatlantic accents. So, I love when we get to have footage, and that's rare for a topic that's old like this. After it was all over, the authorities involved gave their reactions. President Hoover released a statement on July 28th in which he twice referred to the so-called bonus marchers and added, an examination of a large number of names discloses that a considerable part of those remaining were not veterans. Many are communists and persons with criminal records. And MacArthur added, it was animated by the essence of revolution. He added that only 10% of the men driven away were genuine veterans. None of this is true. On July 29th, Vice President Charles Curtis was making a speech in Las Vegas when one of the hecklers raised the events in Washington. So a heckler was like, hey man, let's talk about this. And Curtis shouted back, you cowards, I'm not afraid of any of you. So the current administration is losing the plot. They are very, very, very much losing the plot in every shape of being. So an Army intelligence report claimed that the BEF intended to occupy the Capitol permanently, instigate fighting as a signal for communist uprisings in all major cities. It also conjectured that at least part of the Marine Corps garrison in Washington would side with the revolutionaries, hence Marine units 8 blocks from the Capitol were never called upon. The report was not declassified until 1991. So they are it's communist elements in there and they have the Marines and they're going to take over. No, these are literally desperate men trying to provide for their families. So the Department of Justice released an investigative report on the bonus army in September 1932, noting that communists had attempted to involve themselves with the bonus army from the start and had been arrested for offenses during the protest. As soon as the bonus march was initiated, as early as May 1932, the Communist Party undertook an organized campaign to instigate, the movement and induced radicals to join the marchers in Washington. As early as the edition of May 31st, 1932, the Daily Worker, a publication which is a central organ to the Communist Party, urged worker veteran delegations to go to Washington on June 8th. So the Daily Worker encouraged veterans to go to the veterans protest. And they're like, communism. That is communism. When you encourage veterans to go to a protest for veterans, that is very offensive. Very, very, very offensive. In 1932, Hoover stated that the bulk of the bonus army members behaved reasonably, and the minority of what he described as communist and career criminals were responsible for the unrest associated with the events. I wish to state empathetically that the extraordinary proportion of criminal communist non-veteran elements among the marchers as shown by this report should not be taken to reflect upon the many thousands of honest, law-abiding men who came to Washington with the full right of presentation of their views to Congress. But you still shot at them and burned their homes down. Got it. This better element and their leaders acted at all times to restrain crime and violence, but after the adjournment of Congress, a large portion of them returned to their homes, and gradually these better elements lost control. In his 1952 memoir, who the fuck asked Herbert Hoover for a memoir? I don't recall asking for that. Hoover stated that at least 900 of the bonus army were ex-convicts and communists. So originally, this report, where was it? So the report's saying that it's like so many communists that they are signaling to communists really contradicts that 900 number. Because if we know the march was somewhere between 15 to 45,000, whether it's 15 or 45,000, 900 is still a pretty small minority in that group. So, the lies. And again, who the fuck asked Herbert Hoover for a memoir? You were one of the most hated presidents in U.S. history. So, maybe they failed, but they tried. In his memoir, The Whole of Their Lives, Benjamin Gitlow of the Communist Party claimed that a number of communists had joined the bonus army during their trek across the nation with the goal of recruiting people to the communist cause. So there were communists there trying to recruit people. And a 2009 Encyclopedia Britannica blog post asserted that these would-be communist organizers were rejected by the bonus army marchers. So the government was correct in that communists were like, we should try and recruit these people to communism, but it didn't work. Like, it literally just didn't work. There were communists present in the camps led by John T. Pace from Michigan, but if Pace believed that the bonus army was a ready-made revolutionary cadre, he was mistaken. The marchers routinely expelled avowed communists from the camps. They destroyed communist leaflets and other literature. And among their other slogans, the veterans adopted a motto directed at the communist: eyes front, not left. Which, like, I'm a leftist, but that's a really good fucking slogan. Yeah, there were veterans that were communists. That's what they said earlier, is that they encouraged veterans who were communists to go. But the vast majority of the veterans were not. So it was like not a space that was welcoming to communism at all. And eyes front, not left. What I'm going to take that as, and what I think it is, and what I think that like the essence of it is, and why they said it, is that the point of them being there is not a political agenda. It is to be paid the bonuses that they are owed while they're still alive. So like eyes front, meaning like we're all focusing on our common issue of being paid bonuses. We do not need to worry about our political ideologies and things like that. That's how that reads to me. That doesn't read as like anti anything. That just reads as like we're focusing on the point. The newspapers of the day briefly describe this in their editorial reactions. Out of 30 papers, 21 supported the government's response. The Ohio State Journal wrote, President Hoover chose the course that Lincoln chose. The presidents have always chosen. So, like, referring to Lincoln invading the South is, I think, what they're referring to. But the South shot the first, so that doesn't even make sense. Bad journalism. On the other hand, the Chicago Herald and Examiner referred to President Hoover by his name, called his actions sheer stupidity and without parallel in American annals. Is that how you say that word? Joe Angelo, a decorated hero from the war who had saved Patton's life during an offensive on September 26, 1918, approached him that day to sway him. So that's the crazy part, is that the leaders of the military that were doing this had worked with the men they were doing it to. So literally, someone saved your life. They come up to you and be like, you should not be doing this, and you just dismiss them? Is insane to me. This episode was sent to represent the proverbial essence of the bonus army. Each man, the face on each side, Angelo, the dejected loyal soldier, and Patton, the unmoved government official unconcerned with past loyalties. So it's like, it's just very gross to me and very sad. Like, it really is your own. Like, you saved this man's life, and you see him in this moment doing this to you. That is so sad and so horrific. The police superintendent quit over it. Because remember, the police superintendent was like, I think this is fine, and I'm not going to do anything. I don't know how to say anything, damn. So, although the Bonus Army incident did not derail the careers of military officials, it proved politically disastrous for Hoover, and it was a contributing factor to him losing the 1932 election. He did this in an election year. This was in July, and the election was in November. So fucking stupid. Like, it's evil, but it's also really stupid. And when people that are evil are also stupid, I judge them even more. The police superintendent was not pleased that the army intervened. He believed that the police could have handled the situation, and he resigned. That's so real of him, because he, from the jump, like, was handling it. Like, he was helping coordinate food for them. He was making sure there wasn't violence. Like, he was handling it. And I am confident they wanted to clear those buildings. I get it. I think if they had sent in the police chief or the police superintendent that had been working with them, unarmed, not the whole group coming to clear the building, just him by himself, and they had said, like, hey, we really can't have you guys in these buildings. Like, people are getting upset about it. We don't want to, like, fuck with your shit. So if you could pack it up, we'll give you a couple days. That would be awesome. I feel like they would have done it because, like I said, at the point that the riot and the attack on the veterans happened, it was weeks after the bill failed. They just hadn't left because they didn't have anywhere else to go. So, like, I don't know. That's just sad to me. You thought the veterans gave up? No. So during the presidential campaign of 1932, Roosevelt was opposed to the veterans' bonus demands. And so when he became president in 1933, they planned a second march. That's hilarious. And they also demanded that the federal government provide them housing and food during their stay. So that's kind of iconic. They were like, we're still here. We're still here, actually, and we're not fucking leaving. And it kills me that FDR was like, I'm not supporting you getting that bonus. And they were like, we're just going to move on in. Don't even worry about it. We're on the way. We barely even left. We've been gone for 6 months. So, and they were just in Pennsylvania. They weren't that far away. He was pretty chill about it. Despite his opposition to their demand for bonuses, he greeted them quite differently. He had a special camp set up for them. He provided 40 field kitchens serving 3 meals a day and bus transportation to and from the Capitol and entertainment in the form of military bands. So, like, one thing about FDR is, like, he was pretty good at PR. Like, he was good at, like, appeasing people and, like, he knew that people hated the government. He knew that people didn't trust the government. So he was like, what's the bare minimum that I can do to keep them happy? And entertainment is important. You have to give people something to look forward to. So then he was like, they're in Virginia. We got a little space. You want to come to the city? Here's a free bus for you. I think the way he played this is wise. If you're not going to pay them, this is what you need to do. So low-key, he let them stay there. He was like, yeah, you can stay. I guess that's fine. And Eleanor Roosevelt is that bitch that she's just in there. So administrations led by presidential confidant Lewis Howey tried to negotiate an end to the protest, and they were not successful. So Roosevelt sent his wife alone, which I think was smart, because keep in mind, a lot of these veterans have their families and their children with them. So she had lunch with the veterans. She listened to them perform songs. She reminisced about her memories of seeing troops off to World War I and then welcoming them home. And the most that she could offer is she promised them jobs in the CCC. So she was like, cousin wife mentioned. Yeah, I always forget about that part. She was like, listen, I can't get you the bonus and I can't get you a regular job, but I can get you a job in the Civilian Conservation Corps. I can do that much. One veteran commented, Hoover sent the army, Roosevelt sent his wife. And I think that, like, this is a really good example of truly just approaching people with, like, humanity and trying to come to a solution with them. Like, he simply did not have the money to give them. Like we saw, it was billions of dollars. It's the Great Depression. He simply did not have it. It was just not an option on the table. But, like, they're getting creative. They're trying to talk to them and come to a solution. Like, this is the way that you get things done. In a press conference following her visit, the First Lady described her reception as courteous. She praised the marchers, and she said she was very, very comfortable, despite the critics of the marchers who described them as communist and criminals. So she was basically like, it was fine, and they were really chill and normal. So May 1933, Roosevelt issues an executive order allowing the enrollment of 25,000 veterans in the CCC, exempting them from the normal requirements. Because the normal requirement is you had to be under 25 and unmarried. A lot of these men are married and in their 30s at this point. So they were like, you can break that rule and you're still in. Congress, with the Democrats holding the majority in both houses, passed the Adjusted Compensation Act in 1936, which authorized the immediate payment of $2 billion in World War I bonuses, and then overrode Roosevelt's veto of the measure. So it did end up passing anyway. And again, checks and balances. So ultimately, very, very tragic that people did die. But honestly, I feel like the way this ended was a lot more positive than I expected. I didn't know that until I made this. I knew about the incident, but I didn't know they put them in the CCC afterwards. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this. Reminder about the clip challenge again. Feel free to email them to me to enter. And you have one more week. I extended it by a week because I forgot to tell you last week. And what's wrong with me? Next week, we are talking about Nathan Fielder, who I'm very obsessed with. He's very critically important to me, specifically. But yeah, let's play our little frickin' game. Which one do we want to do? We'll do sports. I don't think we've done sports. Oh, you guys can't see it. There you go. So, it's almost like people like a woman being nice for 5 minutes versus someone shooting at them. Exactly. And very diplomatic woman. Somehow I still know nothing about Nathan Fielder. Buckle in. Buckle in. So, if you don't know what this is, every week at the end of my stream, we play a little game about what we talked about, what we learned about. It is free. You do not need an account. I do not need your email address. I am not trying to steal your data. You can join on your phone. You can join in a new tab on a device. You can join on a tablet, whatever. The directions are up on the screen. It tells you what to do, and I also just put the link in the chat. It will ask you your name. Your name will come up on my screen. If you do not want your name here, put something fun and clever instead. That's what most people do. This is a safe space. So I'll give people a couple moments to join our little game. And it's easy. It's just 10 questions about whatever topic we talked about. So this week, about the bonus expeditionary force. Oh, my phone's about to die. I'm not doing that. I hope the person that just sent me that message isn't watching this. Oh. You can steal my data. Everyone else does it. I know. It's like you kind of just have to accept it at this point. You really, really do. What's that noise outside? I love teacher Facebook groups because people are just so messy. Like, it's absolutely incredible. Oh my god, someone I know started law school. Good for them. Couldn't be me. Oh my god, do you guys want to hear something so scary? This guy that I went on like a couple dates with just posted that he got married, which, like, congratulations or whatever. Were those slides similar to the ones you do in school? Not at all. I made that entire thing from scratch. When I teach this in school, it's like a very, like, one slide, very basic, or sometimes I don't even get to do it because we run out of time. This was like the most in-depth that I've ever learned about this. Yes, the home buying video is still happening. I'm sorry that other things keep taking precedence over that, but it really is still happening. I believe in me, even though you probably shouldn't, but it is still happening. I wrote out my part. I just keep forgetting to ask Mr. Redacted to write out his part for me to read about the financial stuff, that some of which I understand, but not all of it. What was I about to tell you? It was good too. I forgot. Oh well. Maybe it'll come back to me or it won't. Oh, what about the guy? Okay, so this guy that I literally went on like 2 dates with, posted that he just got married, which, like, congratulations. No, he wasn't scary. He was, like, nice and fine. Anyway. Posted that he got married, and instead of being like, I got married, I love my wife, his wife is pregnant, and he was like, had to upgrade my baby mama to wife. That's terrifying. That's genuinely terrifying. Like, that sentence, that's how you announced your marriage? No. No. Like, no. No. Had to upgrade my, like... And if that's your situation, like, no judgment, it happens. Like, I'm not a purist, like, it happens. I'm not, like, whatever. Whatever. Had to That literally was just such a jump scare. Like, that was so scary. That's her life. Like, she's alive, and that is her life. Wow. Like, that, like, she wakes up, and that's... Yeah, man. And their wedding looked, like, super casual, which is fine, but, like, the casual in combination with that... She needs to downgrade her husband to divorce. No, like, I'm literally scared. I'm scared. And like I said, I genuinely barely know this person. Like, I genuinely do not know this man. I would show you the photo, but that's, like, kind of fucked up. And, like, the wedding just looks, like, super casual, like, which is fine. But again, like, oh my God. Like, oh my God. I'm stressed. And now I'm trying to find the post and I can't find it. Did he block me? Is he watching this? Oh, Jesus Christ. We know enough. Yeah, you're right. You're right. We know enough. Game. The game is on there. Are people still joining? There's 30 of you. I'll go ahead and start it. The eyes. Okay. Kerchow. The game is pretty easy this week, because I just made the questions, like, from memory. When you get shot. That is funny. Yes, I have wanted to do a stream about the Japanese internment, which is something, like I said, I don't really talk about the bonus army in class, but we do talk about that a fair amount because there are court cases around it that are very educational. I can never get too into FDR over that atrocity. That's how I feel too. I think FDR is definitely a president that really changed our country and did a lot of great things, but also, like, to be the president of the United States means, like, you're doing some fucked up shit, and that's definitely one of them. Y'all are doing a good job at the game. I'm proud of you. Oh, that should say the, not he. Is there usually music? There is, but this music's a little more fun. I like the music on the sports one. When did they arrive in DC? Is Nathan Fielder an actor or a character? He is a comedian. He is a comedian. So, like, he acts, and he's a character, but it's not, like, a character. Like, that's his real name, and he's a real person. He's a comedian and actor, I guess. It's our money, and we want it now. That's funny. No, what's the Lizard Lounge? Are you gonna spoil Nathan's new show, though? Probably kind of. Do you guys not want me to? I don't have to. I just finished it, but it's been out for like over a year. I'm not, it depends how you define spoil. Like, I'm not gonna tell you every detail of what happens, because like, it's only an hour and a half, 2 hour stream, but we are gonna talk about it. Actually, yeah, I think I'm not taking opinions. I think I am going to talk about it. But there will be things that I don't talk about in it. So, like, if you watch me and then watch the show, you will still enjoy the show. You'll just know a couple things beforehand, which is how I watched it, because I, like, saw stuff on social media about it and saw some clips. I know it's not new anymore, but I haven't seen it. I won't spoil it too bad. So, your judgment call, I guess. And it'll be more towards the end. So if you just want to watch it and then leave early, that's what I would do if I were you. Of course, this was the picture question, obviously. Oh, Nate's Lizard Lounge. No, I have not. The bar he built. I would love to go. I want to have my bachelorette party there. Please. I forgot he built a bar. Like, he just does anything and everything. I tried to play Gimkit with my class the other day, and I haven't used it in like so many years that I forgot how it works, and it's super different now. Who did the government blame? Communist. The one time the government didn't blame women. Who are we learning about next week? TK in first place, Kamika, Sabrina, it's our money and we want it now. Disgrundleson, nice. 1800 Megan, President, Herbert Sockmaster, Lizard Beth, how do I stop thinking about the rise of fascism in the US? You don't. Something fun and clever instead, The Life of Hoover, no one asked, Pinky in the Brain, Caitlin, Lola, and Send the Wife. Nice job, Dwight Diva, Eisenhower. Bat in my apartment, didn't marry my cousin. Nice job. Any memes, anything to add, anything to share? I really liked this topic because I felt like it was the perfect length. Like, I truly have nothing more to say about this. Like, that is all the information I could find. I don't feel like I left anything out. And a lot of times I do worry that I'm leaving things out because everything is just so nuanced. Early 20th century violence, economic strife, and the rise of fascism in the present. That's a good one. I agree. This was a great lesson. Like, it was so specific enough, but also, like, we talked about World War I, we talked about the 1920s. Like, I really feel like we talked about it. We did it. We nailed it. And like I said, next week we are talking about Nathan Fielder, and then the week after that we are talking about Megan King Edmonds. She was very briefly on the Real Housewives of Orange County, and she has had kind of a messy life, so we'll be talking about that. I love that it was multi-topic, low-key. Me too. I'm so impressed we finished on time with so much gabbing in the beginning. That's a true master of education. It's funny because right before this I was telling my fiance, I was like, oh, this week's is like a little bit quicker. It never is. FDR when the vets wanted to stay. That's really funny. All right, team. Thank you for being here. This is always the highlight of my week. Please continue to read and share Dr. Shofyan's GoFundMe. I have updates from him that I will be sharing soon. I was just talking to him the other day. And then I will see you next week for Nathan Fielder. Have a great night. I want my money back.